All right, let's jump right in. Today, we're looking at a really powerful and honestly pretty optimistic vision for what our future with AI could look like. The big idea? That we're not being replaced. Instead, we're being handed an incredible new set of tools to, well, build a better world.
So the whole idea we're diving into today kicks off with this line. It frames this huge technological shift we're in, not just as some economic event, but as a defining moment for human creativity, for our craft. It's asking us to think bigger, to think like we're the architects of what comes next.
And this is where it gets really interesting, because it totally reframes the debate. On one side, you have the common fear, right, that AI and robots are coming for our jobs. But then there's this other, much older perspective that sees them not as threats at all, but as the best apprentices humanity has ever had.
Okay, so let's really dig into that idea, shall we? How exactly can we start seeing AI and robotics not as our replacements, but as a new generation of tools that are actually here to serve us?
I mean, think about it. We've always used tools to shape our world, and not just physically, but symbolically, to shape ourselves. The square can represent morality, a compass can define our boundaries. The argument here is that AI and robotics, they're just the next evolution in our grand toolkit for building a better civilization. So what's the job of these new apprentices? Simple. They're here to do all the work that grinds us down. The drudgery, the repetitive tasks, the dangerous, backbreaking labor that's defined human existence for thousands of years. They're here to smooth out those rough edges of life, freeing us up for something else.
And that right there leads to the absolute core question of this whole thing. If our basic needs, food, shelter, you name it, are all taken care of by automation, what's left for us to do? What becomes our purpose? What is our new work?
Finding the answer to that question brings us to the real heart of this idea, that this massive technological shift isn't the end of work, but maybe, just maybe, it's a promotion to our true calling.
That's a powerful statement, isn't it? The idea isn't that our work is just vanishing. It's that the very definition of work is being elevated. We're graduating from labor that's measured by what we produce with our hands to a vocation that's defined by our very humanity. But what does being fully human actually look like?
Well, the first tool we're going to need is what this framework calls the square. See, in a world where logic and automation are everywhere, our character, our morality, our honesty, our integrity, that becomes our most valuable asset. It's the foundation that everything else has to be built on.
I love this concept, a renaissance of subjectivity. It means that as logic and calculation become cheap and abundant, thanks to AI, the things that machines can't replicate, our unique, subjective human experiences and feelings, they become incredibly rare and therefore incredibly valuable.
And this chart just spells it out perfectly. AGI can calculate, but it can't truly care. It can process mountains of data, but it can't feel empathy. It can automate any task you give it, but it can't find genuine meaning in serving others. Our new vocation? It's everything on the right side of this chart.
Okay, so if our individual roles are changing so dramatically, what does that mean for society as a whole? The argument here is that this could kick off a completely unprecedented era of equality.
Which brings us to our next symbolic tool, the level. For most of history, the idea of meeting on the level, where a king and a commoner are treated as equals, was a pretty radical concept. This vision proposes that technology could finally be the force that makes this a reality for every single person.
And here's the practical side of how that could happen. When the fundamental building blocks of a good life, things like quality healthcare, clean energy, and a world-class education become so cheap they're nearly free thanks to automation and AI, well, the historical barriers that have created so much inequality start to just dissolve. Technology becomes the great equalizer.
All right, so if the old hierarchies based on wealth and status start to fade away, what replaces them? That's where the plum comes in. It represents a totally new kind of hierarchy, one that's not based on what you have, but on who you are. It's about the depth of your wisdom, your character, and your contribution to the whole.
This visual just lays it all out so clearly. You've got robots as the new labor class, doing all the hard work. This frees up every single human to become an architect of their own life, of their own community. And AGI acts like a universal library in everyone's pocket, democratizing knowledge on a scale we've never even dreamed of. But here's the catch, and it's a big one. This future isn't guaranteed. It's not just going to happen to us. The temple, so to speak, is still under construction. And we're the builders.
And that brings us to the final, and maybe the most important tool in the kit,
The trowel. It's the tool that binds everything and everyone together. In a world of increasing automation, our connection to each other becomes everything.
And we really need to pay attention to this, because there's a real danger that a high-tech world could become a high-loneliness world. The antidote to that is a conscious, deliberate focus on community. We have to create spaces where we gather, not just to survive, but to truly thrive, to learn and to grow together.
So let's recap the whole team lineup. You have the grand architect. You can think of that as nature or the universe, providing the raw materials. You've got AGI to draw up the perfect blueprints. And you've got robots to provide all the strength needed for the heavy lifting. But there's still something missing.
And that's the missing piece. The tools are there, the plans are there, the power's there, but the will, the desire, the motivation, the conscious choice to actually build a better world, that comes from us. It always has and it always will.
So ultimately, this perspective doesn't just leave us with a prediction, it leaves us with a profound sense of agency. The future isn't some destination we're all just passively heading towards. It is a structure we are all actively building, brick by brick, right now. So the only question that really matters is, are you ready to build?